Jamal Washington stared out the airplane window at the clouds below. The 12-year-old boy could hardly believe he was flying across the ocean to Singapore. His science project about communicating with space aliens had won first place at the national competition. Now he was going to present it at the International Youth Science Conference. Jamal pulled his worn backpack closer. Inside was his notebook filled with drawings of spaceships and math problems about light-speed travel. He had been working on these ideas since he was 8 years old. His teachers called him a genius, but Jamal just thought space was interesting. "Would you like something to drink?" asked the flight attendant. "Water, please," Jamal said politely. He watched as the woman poured water into a small plastic cup. His mom had taught him to always say please and thank you. Jamal's mother, Letitia, worked as a nurse's aide at night and at a grocery store during the day. Sometimes she cleaned houses on weekends, too. Even with 3 jobs, money was tight. His school had paid for this trip after he won the science contest, but they could only afford an economy seat. Jamal looked toward the front of the plane. The other kids from the science contest sat in business class with their parents. Their schools had more money. Jamal didn't mind sitting alone, though. It gave him time to think about his presentation. Even further ahead, in first class, sat a man Jamal recognized from TV and the internet. Gregory Phillips owned Horizon Industries, one of the biggest space technology companies in America. The billionaire wore an expensive suit and talked on a phone despite the flight attendant's earlier announcement to turn off all devices. Next to Mr. Phillips sat a pregnant woman with long brown hair. She looked uncomfortable in her seat despite all the extra room in first class. Mrs. Phillips was rubbing her large belly and talking to her husband, who seemed more interested in his phone call. Jamal knew from his research that Eleanor Phillips was a famous scientist who studied the possibility of life on other planets. Her work was similar to what Jamal was interested in, but much more advanced. He had read every article about her that he could find online at the school library. "She's going to have her baby soon," said an older woman in the seat next to Jamal. "I hope not on this plane." Jamal nodded and smiled politely, though he kept his attention on the Phillips couple. He wished he could talk to Mrs. Phillips about her research. Maybe at the conference he would get a chance to hear her speak. The airplane hit a small pocket of turbulence, causing drinks to shake and a few passengers to gasp. Jamal wasn't scared. He knew all about how planes worked and how safe air travel was. The statistics showed that driving to the grocery store was more dangerous than flying across the ocean. The flight settled after a few bumps. Jamal opened his notebook and continued working on a math problem about how fast light travels through different materials. If aliens wanted to send messages to Earth, what method would work best? Radio waves? Light signals? Something humans hadn't discovered yet? 3 hours into the 14-hour flight, Jamal was deep in concentration when the plane shook again. This time it was more violent. The seatbelt sign dinged on, and the captain's voice came over the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some unexpected turbulence. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts immediately." Jamal looked out his window. The sky had been clear blue moments ago, but now a strange cloud formation surrounded the plane. It wasn't white like normal clouds. Instead, it glowed with a faint blue light. "That's weird," Jamal whispered to himself. He pulled out his phone to take a picture, then remembered it was in airplane mode. Instead, he quickly sketched the blue light in his notebook. The turbulence grew worse. Drinks spilled. An overhead bin popped open, dropping a small suitcase into the aisle. Flight attendants moved quickly to secure loose items while telling passengers to remain calm. Jamal wasn't afraid, just curious. The blue light outside pulsed, in a regular pattern. 3 short flashes, then 2 long ones. It repeated over and over. This wasn't random turbulence or a storm. It looked like a signal. In the front of the plane, Gregory Phillips was arguing with a flight attendant who kept asking him to put away his phone and laptop. Eleanor Phillips suddenly stood up, holding her belly, and headed toward the bathroom. She moved slowly, using the seats for support as the plane continued to shake. Just as Mrs. Phillips reached the bathroom door, the plane dropped suddenly. It felt like being on a roller coaster when it plunges down a steep hill. Oxygen masks fell from the ceiling. Passengers screamed. The lights flickered on and off. Jamal pulled his mask over his face as he'd been instructed during the safety demonstration. He kept his eyes on the blue light outside. Its pattern had changed. Now it pulsed in groups of 5, then 3, then 2 flashes. Jamal realized with a shock that these were prime numbers. The sequence continued. 5, 3, 2, 7, 11, 13. That's not natural, Jamal said behind his mask. That's communication. The captain's voice came over the intercom again, sounding stressed. Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing a technical malfunction. We are working to stabilize the aircraft. Please remain in your seats with your seatbelts fastened and oxygen masks on. Jamal heard a cry from the front of the plane. Through the chaos, he saw Eleanor Phillips on the floor near the bathroom. She was bent over in pain, and no one was helping her. The flight attendants were busy securing loose items and helping other passengers with their oxygen masks. Gregory Phillips was shouting for help, but he was trapped in his seat by the seatbelt sign and the severe turbulence. He couldn't reach his wife. Without thinking twice, Jamal unbuckled his seatbelt. The older woman next to him grabbed his arm. "Stay in your seat, boy. It's dangerous." But Jamal had already decided what to do. He waited for the plane to steady, slightly, then slipped into the aisle. Staying low and holding onto seatbacks for support, he made his way toward the front where Mrs. Phillips was in distress. The blue light outside grew brighter as Jamal moved forward. He was sure now that whatever caused this wasn't a normal storm. The mathematical pattern was too perfect. When he reached Mrs. Phillips, she was leaning against the wall, breathing hard. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Jamal asked, crouching beside her. Eleanor. Phillips looked up, surprised to see a young boy instead of a flight attendant. Her face was pale and covered in sweat. She shook her head. "The baby," she gasped. "I think it's coming. Too early." Jamal looked around. The flight attendants were busy with an elderly man who appeared to be having chest pains. Gregory Phillips was still shouting from his seat, unable to unfasten his jammed seatbelt in the chaos. "My mom's a nurse's aide," Jamal said calmly. "I've heard her talk about emergency deliveries. I can help you back to your seat." As Jamal helped Mrs. Phillips stand, the blue light outside the plane pulsed brighter than ever. He glanced out at a nearby window and saw something impossible. A large metallic shape moving alongside the aircraft, the source of the blue light. Jamal's heart raced with both fear and excitement. This was what he had been studying and dreaming about his whole life. The patterns, the light, the technology. It wasn't human. "They're here," he whispered, as he supported the millionaire's wife back toward her seat, while the strange craft kept pace with their plane. Jamal helped Eleanor Phillips back to her seat in first class. The plane continued to shake. Outside the window, the blue light moved in patterns that Jamal knew were not random. His heart beat fast as he thought about what this might mean. "Thank you," Eleanor said through gritted teeth. She held her stomach and breathed in short bursts. "The baby isn't due for another month." Gregory Phillips finally managed to free himself from his jammed seatbelt. He looked at Jamal with surprise. "Who are you? Where are the flight attendants?" he demanded. "I'm Jamal Washington, sir. I'm going to the science conference in Singapore. The flight attendants are helping another passenger who might be having a heart attack." Jamal spoke calmly, despite the chaos around them. Eleanor groaned loudly and squeezed Jamal's hand. "Greg, stop questioning the boy. He's helping me." Gregory's face changed from anger to worry. "Is it the baby? Now, but that's impossible." "Babies come when they want to," Jamal said. "My mom works at a hospital. I've heard her talk about early babies." A flight attendant rushed over to them. Her uniform was messy and her hair had come loose from its neat bun. "Mr. Phillips, we've called for a doctor on the plane. But first, this boy needs to return to his seat. It's not safe to be moving around." "No," Eleanor said firmly. "He stays. I need help." The plane dropped suddenly, throwing the flight attendant off balance. She grabbed a nearby seat to steady herself. The oxygen masks swung wildly above them. "We need to make an emergency landing," the flight attendant said. "The captain is looking for the nearest airport, but the navigation systems are acting strangely." "It's the blue light," Jamal said. It's interfering with the electronics. The adults looked at him in surprise. What blue light? Gregory asked. Look outside. Jamal pointed to the window. All three adults turned to look. The strange blue glow pulsed in the same mathematical sequence Jamal had noticed earlier. Now it was even brighter, almost blinding. What is that? Gregory whispered. I don't know for sure, Jamal said. But I think it might be a ship, not from Earth. Under normal circumstances, the adults might have laughed at such a suggestion from a 12-year-old boy. But these were not normal circumstances. They all stared at the light in shock and fear. Eleanor cried out again, grabbing her husband's arm. The contractions are getting closer together. The flight attendant looked around desperately. The doctor is 3 rows back in business class. I'll get him. She hurried away through the shaking cabin. Other passengers were crying or praying. Some had their phones out, recording the strange blue light through their windows. We need to get her more comfortable, Jamal said to Gregory. Can we make a bed with these seats? Gregory nodded and pushed a button that made the first-class seats fold flat. Together they helped Eleanor lie down across 2 seats. Jamal took off his jacket and folded it into a pillow for her. Thank you, Eleanor said to Jamal. Then she looked at her husband. Greg, my research notes. They're in my bag. The patterns, in that light, they match the signals I've been studying. Gregory looked confused. What are you talking about? My research on possible alien communication, Eleanor said between heavy breaths. The mathematical sequences in deep space that no one else believed were real. She gripped her husband's hand. I was right all along. The flight attendant returned with an older man who carried a small medical bag. I'm Dr. Gordon, he said. I'm a pediatrician. Not ideal for delivering a baby, but better than nothing. Dr. Gordon examined Eleanor quickly. His face grew serious. The baby is definitely coming. This plane needs to land immediately. The captain says all navigation systems are down, the flight attendant said. We can't find an airport. The blue light outside grew even brighter. The plane stopped shaking suddenly, as if it had been stabilized by an invisible hand. The captain's voice came over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We appear to be... I don't know how to explain this. We appear to be held in some kind of energy field. Our engines are running, but we're not moving forward. Please remain calm while we assess the situation. Panic spread through the cabin. People began shouting and crying. Some took pictures of the blue light with their phones. Tell the captain to look for a pattern in the light, Jamal said to the flight attendant. It's not random, it's communication. The flight attendant looked doubtful but nodded and went to the cockpit. Eleanor's contractions were coming faster. Now. Dr. Gordon looked worried. We need medical supplies, a proper delivery kit. Use my scarf as a blanket, said an older woman who had approached from business class. She handed a clean silk scarf to the doctor. Other passengers began offering items that might help. Bottled water, clean clothes, even alcohol wipes from travel kits. Jamal stood back, watching the scene unfold. He couldn't help with the birth, but he kept studying the blue light outside. Its pattern had changed again. Now it flashed in sequences of 2, then 4, then 8. The numbers doubled each time. Binary code, Jamal whispered to himself. He pulled out his notebook and began writing down the sequences. Gregory noticed what Jamal was doing. What are you writing? I think they're trying to talk to us, Jamal explained. Using math. It's the universal language. As impossible as it seemed, Gregory found himself believing the boy. Can you understand what they're saying? Jamal shook his head. Not yet, but I'm trying. Eleanor screamed as another contraction hit. Dr. Gordon wiped her forehead with a damp cloth. The baby is coming very soon. Everyone who doesn't need to be here should give us some privacy. Most of the passengers returned to their seats, but Gregory stayed by his wife's side. Jamal moved to leave as well, but Eleanor caught his arm. Stay, she said. Please. You're the only one who understands what's happening out there. Jamal nodded and sat down nearby. continuing to write in his notebook while keeping his eyes on the light. The captain's voice came over the intercom again. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've been contacted by air traffic control. They report seeing our plane surrounded by an unusual atmospheric phenomenon. Military jets have been dispatched to investigate." Gregory looked alarmed. "Military? That's the last thing we need. If they try to attack whatever's out there, they won't get close," Jamal said confidently. "The ship is too advanced. It's just watching us." "Why?" Gregory asked. "Why would aliens care about our plane?" Eleanor gasped between contractions. "My research. They must have detected it somehow. I've been broadcasting response signals based on patterns we detected from deep space." Gregory stared at his wife in shock. "You never told me that part of your work." "You were always too busy to listen," Eleanor said, her voice strained with pain. Before Gregory could respond, Dr. Gordon interrupted. "The baby is crowning. Everyone except the father, give us space." Jamal moved back, but kept watching the blue light. Its pattern changed again, becoming faster and more complex. At the same moment, Eleanor pushed with all her strength and screamed. The plane's lights flickered, then went out completely. Emergency lights came on, bathing everything in a dim glow. The only real light came from the brilliant blue radiance, outside. In that strange blue light, a new cry was heard, the first sounds of a baby entering the world. The baby's cries filled the dim cabin as Dr. Gordon wrapped the tiny infant in the silk scarf. The emergency lights cast long shadows across the faces of everyone nearby. Outside, the blue light continued to pulse in complex patterns. "It's a girl," Dr. Gordon announced, placing the newborn on Eleanor's chest. "Small, but she seems healthy." Gregory stared at his daughter in wonder. Tears ran down his face as he gently touched her tiny hand with his finger. "She's beautiful," he whispered. Eleanor was exhausted but smiling. She looked up at Jamal, who stood nearby with his notebook. "Thank you for staying with us." Jamal nodded, but his attention was divided between the new family and the light outside the window. The patterns had changed again. Now they flashed in sequences that reminded him of prime number ratios, the kind of math that couldn't happen by accident. The plane's regular lights suddenly came back on. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, our systems are beginning to function again. We have regained some navigation capabilities and are being directed to make an emergency landing in Honolulu. Please remain in your seats with your seatbelts fastened." A cheer went up from the passengers. Many believed the worst was over. But Jamal knew better. He could still see the blue light following alongside the plane. "They're still here," he said quietly. Gregory overheard him. "The boy's right," he said, pointing to the window. "Whatever it is, it's still with us." Dr. Gordon finished helping Eleanor and the baby get comfortable. "This little one should be checked at a hospital as soon as we land. Premature births can have complications." The flight attendant brought blankets and bottles of water. "The captain says we'll land in about 40 minutes. There will be medical teams waiting." Gregory nodded, then turned to Jamal. "I can't thank you enough for your help. Most adults were panicking, but you kept calm. How old are you?" 12, sir," Jamal replied. "I turn 13 next month." Gregory raised his eyebrows. "And you're traveling alone to a science conference?" "Yes, sir. I won a national competition with my project about communicating with possible alien civilizations," Jamal pointed outside. "I never expected to see real proof so soon." Eleanor's eyes widened. "Your project is about alien communication?" "That's exactly what my research focuses on." Before Jamal could respond, the blue light flashed in a new pattern. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. Jamal recognized it immediately. "That's SOS in Morse code," he said. "They're copying human signals now." Gregory looked skeptical. "How would aliens know Morse code?" "They probably studied our radio transmissions," Jamal explained. "If they've been watching Earth for a while, they would have picked up our communication methods." The baby made small gurgling sounds. Eleanor stroked her tiny head. "She was born during first contact with another species," she said wonderingly. "How should we name her?" Gregory thought for a moment. What about Stella? It means star. Eleanor smiled. Stella, it's perfect. The blue light pulsed again, this time in a pattern that formed a perfect circle outside the window. It held the shape for several seconds, then returned to its previous patterns. They're responding to us naming. The baby, Jamal said excitedly. They must have technology that lets them hear inside the plane. Gregory frowned. That's a little unsettling. I don't think they mean any harm, Jamal said. If they wanted to hurt us, they could have. They're just curious. Eleanor nodded in agreement. In my research, I proposed that any civilization advanced enough for interstellar travel would have evolved beyond violence. Their technology requires cooperation, not destruction. The flight attendant returned with a satellite phone. Mr. Phillips, the captain says there are government officials trying to reach you. They want information about the situation. Gregory sighed and took the phone. They probably want to know about whatever is following us. The military will be all over this. Don't tell them everything, Eleanor said suddenly. If the military gets involved, they'll treat this as a threat. This could be humanity's first peaceful contact with another intelligence. Gregory looked at his wife and newborn daughter, then at Jamal with his notebook full of observations. He nodded slowly. You're right. I'll be careful what I say. As Gregory spoke quietly on the phone, Jamal continued recording the light patterns. He noticed they were becoming simpler, almost like they were slowing down to make sure humans could understand. I think they're trying to establish basic communication, Jamal told Eleanor, starting with simple math concepts that would be universal. Eleanor adjusted baby Stella in her arms. That matches my theories exactly. Math is the one language that would be the same everywhere in the universe. The plane began to descend toward Hawaii. Through the clouds, Jamal could see the blue ocean surrounding the islands. The blue light stayed with them, matching their speed perfectly. We're about to land, the captain announced. Please make sure your seatbelts are fastened securely. Gregory returned the satellite phone to the flight attendant and sat beside his wife and daughter. The government knows something unusual is happening, but I was vague about details. I said there was an unexplained light phenomenon and that Eleanor went into labor. What about the military jets they sent? Jamal asked. Apparently they couldn't. Get close, Gregory said. Their instruments malfunctioned when they approached our position. Eleanor looked relieved. Good. That gives us some time. Time for what? Gregory asked. To make proper contact, Eleanor said. If the military takes over, this opportunity could be lost forever. As the plane descended through the clouds, the blue light suddenly moved to position itself directly above them. It expanded into a dome shape that covered the entire aircraft. Many passengers gasped or screamed. It's protecting us during landing, Jamal said confidently. The patterns have changed to what looks like a shielding sequence. How could you possibly know that? Gregory asked. Jamal showed him the notebook where he'd been recording the patterns. The sequences match protection algorithms. It's like they're creating a safety bubble around us. The plane touched down smoothly despite the strange circumstances. As soon as the wheels hit the runway, the blue dome began to fade. By the time they taxied to a stop, it had vanished completely. Through the windows, Jamal could see emergency vehicles, news crews, and what looked like military personnel surrounding the airport. This was going to be big news. Mr. Phillips, Jamal said urgently. Before we're separated, I need to tell you something important. The patterns in my notebook, they're the beginning of a translation key. I think with more time and your wife's research, we could actually talk to them. Gregory stared at the boy who had helped deliver his daughter during the strangest flight in history. What's your full name again? Jamal Washington, sir. Gregory nodded. Jamal Washington. I won't forget it. He took out a business card and scribbled something on the back. This is my private number. Once this circus calms down, call me. I want to hear more about your ideas. Eleanor reached out and squeezed Jamal's hand. Thank you for everything. When they let me out of the hospital, I want to see your research too. Baby Stella made a small sound, almost like a coo. For a brief moment, Jamal thought he saw a faint blue glow around her tiny fingers, but it disappeared so quickly he couldn't. "Be sure, I think," Jamal said slowly. "This is just the beginning." 3 days passed since the strange flight landed in Hawaii. Jamal sat in a hotel room paid for by the airline while they arranged new flights to Singapore. The science conference would start without him, but he no longer cared about presenting his project there. He had seen the real thing now. News reports talked about an unusual atmospheric phenomenon that had affected the flight. Some passengers shared videos of the blue light online, but most footage was blurry or too dark to show much detail. Government officials called it a rare electrical storm. They said the plane had not been in danger. Jamal knew better. He looked at his notebook filled with the light patterns he had recorded. None of the news reports mentioned what he had seen. A ship that moved with purpose and intelligence. His phone rang. It was his mother calling again. "Hi, Mom," Jamal answered. "Baby, are you okay? I keep seeing that flight on the news." His mother's voice was full of worry. "I'm fine, Mom. The airline got me a nice hotel room. They say I can fly home tomorrow if I want, or continue to Singapore next week. You come home right now," his mother insisted. "I don't like you being alone after something so scary." Jamal hadn't told her everything about the flight. How could he explain what he had seen? How could he tell her he had helped deliver a billionaire's baby while aliens watched? "Okay, Mom. I'll come home tomorrow." After hanging up, Jamal flipped through local TV channels. Most were still talking about the flight. One showed footage of Gregory Phillips leaving the hospital with Eleanor and their newborn daughter. They were surrounded by security guards who pushed away reporters. Jamal sighed. He had hoped to talk more with the Phillips family about what happened, but they hadn't contacted him. Maybe Gregory had thrown away his notebook page with the light patterns. Maybe they just wanted to forget the whole strange experience. There was a knock at his hotel room door. Jamal opened it to find a tall man in a dark suit. "Jamal Washington?" the man asked. "Yes, sir. My name is Alan Beck. I work for Mr. Phillips. He sent me to bring you to him, if you're willing." Jamal's heart raced with excitement. "Yes, let me get my notebook." He grabbed his backpack and followed Mr. Beck to a black car waiting outside the hotel. They drove through busy streets until they reached a private area of the airport where a large jet waited. "Is that Mr. Phillips's private plane?" Jamal asked in amazement. Mr. Beck nodded. "He thought you might be more comfortable talking there. The hospital has too many eyes and ears." When they reached the plane, Jamal climbed the steps and entered. A space larger than his entire apartment back home. Soft leather seats, wood tables, and even a small kitchen area filled the cabin. Gregory Phillips sat at one end looking at a laptop screen. "Jamal," Gregory said, standing to greet him. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for inviting me, sir," Jamal replied politely. "How is Mrs. Phillips and the baby?" "They're doing well. Stella is small but healthy. The doctors say she can travel in a few days." Gregory gestured to a seat. "Please sit down. I want to talk about what happened on that flight." Jamal sat and opened his notebook. "I wrote down all the light patterns I saw. I've been trying to figure out what they mean." Gregory studied the notebook pages. "This is impressive work for someone your age. Eleanor says the same thing. She wants to meet with you once she's released from the hospital." "Really?" Jamal couldn't hide his excitement. Gregory nodded. "She's convinced that what we saw was a genuine contact from another intelligence just like you are." "And what do you think, sir?" Jamal asked carefully. Gregory sighed and leaned back in his seat. 3 days ago, I would have called this nonsense. But I saw that light with my own eyes. It moved with purpose, it followed us, it even helped us land safely." He paused. "And there's something else, something we haven't told anyone." "What is it?" Jamal leaned forward. "It's Stella. The doctors did all the normal tests for a newborn. They found something unusual in her brain scans. Activity patterns that they've never seen before." Gregory's voice dropped to a whisper. "And sometimes when she's sleeping, her fingers glow with a faint blue light, just like what we saw outside the plane." Jamal's eyes widened. I saw that right after she was born. I thought I imagined it. You didn't imagine it. Whatever was out there, it did something to my daughter. Gregory looked worried. I need to know what they wanted. Why they chose our plane, why they chose that moment. I think they were drawn to Mrs. Phillips's research, Jamal said. She told me she was sending signals into space based on mathematical patterns. Gregory nodded. That's what she believes too. But why would they respond now? She's been doing that research for years. Jamal thought for a moment. Maybe they were always listening, and they only now decided to answer. A new voice joined their conversation. Or maybe they needed something from us. Jamal turned to see Eleanor Phillips entering the plane, holding baby Stella wrapped in a soft blanket. She looked tired but determined. A woman who appeared to be a nurse followed behind her. Eleanor! Gregory jumped up. You're supposed to be resting at the hospital. I checked myself out, she said, sitting down carefully. This is more important than rest. Baby Stella made small cooing sounds in her mother's arms. Jamal noticed her tiny fingers did indeed have a faint blue glow around them, barely visible in the plane's lighting. I've reviewed your notebook, Jamal, Eleanor said. The patterns you recorded match exactly with signals I've detected in my research, but there's a key difference. The ones you saw were much stronger and more complex. What do you think they wanted? Jamal asked. Eleanor looked down at her daughter. I think they wanted to make contact through Stella. Gregory frowned. What do you mean? Think about it, Eleanor explained. They appeared when I went into labor. They stayed until she was born. Now she shows signs of something different. She touched Stella's glowing fingers gently. I think they gave her a gift, a way to understand them. Are you saying our daughter is some kind of alien experiment? Gregory's voice rose with concern. No, Eleanor said firmly. I'm saying she might be a bridge between our species, a human who can understand them better than we can. Jamal watched as baby Stella opened her eyes. They seemed to shine with unusual brightness. Mr. Phillips, Jamal said suddenly, you asked me on the plane what I wanted as thanks for helping. Mrs. Phillips, I didn't answer then because everything was happening so fast. Gregory turned to him. Yes, that's right. I should properly thank you. Money? A scholarship? Whatever you want. Jamal shook his head. I don't want money. What I want is to help understand what happened. I want to work with you and Mrs. Phillips to figure out what the blue light beings were trying to tell us. He pointed to Stella. And I want to help her understand what they gave her. Gregory looked surprised. That's all? You don't want anything else? This is the most important thing that has ever happened, Jamal said seriously. More important than money or scholarships, or anything else. Eleanor smiled at Jamal. I think that's a wonderful idea. We could create a special research team. Combine my scientific knowledge with Jamal's observations and whatever Stella can tell us as she grows. Gregory looked at his wife, then at his glowing daughter, and finally at the 12-year-old boy who had helped deliver her during the strangest flight in history. He felt tears forming in his eyes. Most people would have asked for money, he said quietly. But you asked for the chance to help humanity communicate with the stars. Jamal nodded. That's all I've ever wanted to do. Gregory wiped his eyes and extended his hand to Jamal. Then that's what we'll do. Together. 6 months later, Jamal stood in front of a large window looking out at the New Mexico desert. The sun was setting, painting the sky with orange and pink colors. Behind him, a room full of advanced equipment hummed and blinked with lights. This was the New Horizon Contact Center, built by Gregory Phillips in secret. Far from cities and curious eyes, the center was dedicated to understanding what had happened on that flight and to establishing communication with the beings who had reached out to them. Jamal's life had changed completely since that day. Gregory had spoken to his mother, offering her a job at the center as a medical assistant. Now both Jamal and his mom lived in a nice house near the facility. Jamal had private tutors instead of going to regular school, and spent most of his time working with Eleanor Phillips on their research. Thinking deep thoughts? Eleanor asked, walking into the room with baby Stella in her arms. Jamal smiled. Just watching the sunset? Do you think they're watching too? Eleanor looked out at the sky. I believe they are. They've been watching us for a long time. Stella had grown into a healthy baby with bright, curious eyes. The blue glow around her. Fingers now appeared only at night or when she was very excited. The doctor still couldn't explain it, but they found no signs that it was harmful to her. Is everything ready for tonight? Jamal asked. Eleanor nodded. Gregory is bringing the last piece of equipment now. We should be able to start at midnight. Tonight was special. After months of studying the patterns Jamal had recorded and combining them with Eleanor's research, they believed they were ready to send a clear message back to the beings they now called the Watchers. Gregory entered the room, followed by several workers carrying a large metal device. Where do you want this, Eleanor? In the center of the room, connected to the main computer, she directed. The device was a special transmitter, designed by Gregory's company based on Eleanor and Jamal's calculations. It could send signals much stronger and more precisely than any normal radio equipment. Will it work? Jamal asked as the workers installed the transmitter. In theory, yes, Eleanor said. If they're still watching us, they should receive our message. Gregory joined them by the window. In the past 6 months, he had changed too. He had become less interested in money and government contracts, and more focused on understanding what had happened to his family. He had even grown a beard, something the old Gregory Phillips would never have done. The government people called again, Gregory said quietly. They want to know what we're doing out here. What did you tell them? Eleanor asked. The same thing, as always, that we're testing new satellite communication technology. Nothing they need to worry about. Jamal knew that some powerful people were very interested in what had happened on their flight. Military officials, scientists, and even the president had asked questions. But Gregory had used his money and influence to keep them away. At least, for now. They'll find out eventually, Jamal said. Gregory put his hand on Jamal's shoulder. Yes, but by then we'll hopefully have established peaceful contact. Once that happens, they can't keep it secret or try to turn it into a weapon. As night fell, more people arrived at the center. Some were scientists who had worked with Eleanor before. Others were trusted employees of Gregory's company. All had signed strict privacy agreements. Letitia Washington, Jamal's mother, brought food for everyone. She had adapted well to their new life, though she still worried about what might happen if the contact went wrong. You be careful with all this alien business, she told Jamal as she gave him a sandwich. Don't forget you're still my baby. I'll be careful, Mom, Jamal promised. At 11:30 p.m., everyone gathered in the main room. The transmitter was ready, connected, to computers that would send the carefully designed message. It was based on the same mathematical patterns they had seen in the blue light, with additions that Eleanor and Jamal had created to show they understood and wanted to talk. What if they don't answer? Someone asked. They will, Jamal said confidently. They're waiting for us to be ready. At exactly midnight, Gregory gave the signal. Eleanor pressed the button to start the transmission. The computers hummed louder, and the transmitter began to glow with energy. Message sending, a technician, announced. All systems normal. For several minutes, nothing happened. The room was quiet except for the sound of the equipment and baby Stella making soft noises in Eleanor's arms. Then Stella's fingers began to glow blue, brighter than ever before. She waved her tiny hands in the air and made happy sounds. Look, Jamal pointed out the window. In the distance, a blue light appeared in the sky. It grew larger and brighter as they watched, moving toward the center at incredible speed. They heard us, Eleanor whispered. The blue light stopped directly above the building. It pulsed in a pattern that Jamal and Eleanor immediately recognized. The exact response they had hoped for. It's them, Gregory said in amazement. They really came back. A beam of blue light shot down from the sky, passing through the roof as if it were not there. It touched the floor in the center of the room beside the transmitter. Everyone stepped back in fear and wonder. The light began to take shape, forming what looked like a person made of glowing blue energy. It wasn't clearly male or female, human, or alien, but something in between. Baby Stella reached toward the figure, her whole body now glowing with blue light. The light being reached back, though it didn't touch her. A soft voice filled the room, not coming from speakers but somehow appearing directly in everyone's minds. We have waited long for this moment. Your child is the first bridge between our kinds. The boy recognized our patterns. The mother called to us with her research. The father provided the means. Together, you have opened the door. Jamal stepped forward bravely. Who are you? Why did you choose us? The light being seemed to smile, though it had no clear face. We have watched your world for many of your years. Most humans fear what they do not understand. They turn knowledge into weapons, but you three showed something different. Courage, curiosity, care for others without seeking reward. These are the qualities we seek in those we contact. Gregory moved to stand beside Jamal. What happens now? Now we talk, the being said simply. We share knowledge. We learn from each other. There is much your species can teach us, and much we can teach you. Eleanor joined them, holding Stella close. And our daughter? What is her role in this? The being's light pulsed gently. She will understand both worlds. She is not changed in her humanity, only given the ability to see what others cannot. She will help translate between our kinds as she grows. Jamal thought about everything that had happened since that strange flight, how his life had changed, how the world would change once this contact became known. Will others believe us? He asked the light being. Some will fear. Some will doubt. But truth has its own power, the being answered. You helped bring this moment to your world, young Jamal Washington. Without seeking reward, you have given your species a great gift. Gregory wiped tears from his eyes as he looked at the boy who had brought them to this historic moment. The boy who had asked for nothing but the chance to help humanity reach for the stars. Thank you, Gregory said to Jamal. For everything. Jamal smiled as the blue light filled the room, beginning a new chapter in human history.